Welcome to the Monday, December 18th school committee meeting of the Newburyport School District. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Kennedy, would you call the roll?
Mr. DeCanter?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Ms. Sweeney?
Present.
Mayor Holliday?
Present.
Mr. Hawkeizer?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
And Mr. Reardon?
Here.
And now, for the last time, I would like to turn over the chair to the vice chair, Cheryl Sweeney.
Thank you. For the last time. Wow, it's been a long time.
Unless you want to run again.
I don't know what I'm going to do every other Monday for the rest of my life.
You've got work to do in January.
Well, I
not
know
to
that
worry.
in January and February I'm all set. This brings us to our session of public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would care to address the school committee, could you please step forward, state your name and your address? I left out the 2 minutes.
Good evening, Peter Hill, Newburyport Teachers Association President. On behalf of my colleagues in the Newburyport Teachers Association, I would like to thank you, Cheryl, for your years of service and commitment to the teachers and students of the Newburyport school system. While we may not always have agreed on some issues, we know that you came to your decisions from the standpoint of what was in the best interest of our students. I wish you joy and happiness and some well-deserved rest. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice. I'll come help you feed the animals.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Okay, I can't carry on. Consent agenda, do we have warrants?
Sure.
Mr. Bennett?
Before I do that, I just would like to note for the record that this is the last time that Brian Callahan will be sitting on that side of the table.
I said that to him right before the meeting.
I move that the following named bills, I do have three. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $37,268.40 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $26,658.43 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. It doesn't say that there are conflicts.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $416,703.90 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Menon. I'd like you to turn your attention, please, to the Newburyport School Committee Business Meeting Minutes for Monday, December 4th, 2017. Could I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
Could I hear a second?
Second.
Any comment, correction? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. Abstain.
One abstention. Thank you. Okay, Jake, you need to make this good. It's my last one.
A lot of pressure.
Look up and talk to me.
All right. Let's see. The new school store that we established this year, they're having a holiday sale through the 22nd. We have an ugly sweater day this Thursday, 21st. Student council will be rewarding prizes, so we encourage everyone to wear their ugly sweater if possible. Model UN will be starting up. They'll be holding a meeting on Tuesday, December 19th. The Career Health and Science Expo was a huge success, fantastic, and now they're doing the STEM Career Expo. That will meet February 1st. National Honor Society Christmas tree pickup service will be after the holidays on Tuesday, January 6th, the 13th, and the 20th. Sports, we have boys basketball, beat North Reading 43-40. Girls basketball beat North Reading 32-27, and hockey tied St. Mary's 2-2. And on behalf of the entire student body, Ms. Whitney, we want to wish you the happiest times. We want to make sure, everything you've done here has been acknowledged, and we really respect everything you've done, because we know everything you've done here is for the best of the students, so we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm not going to introduce the next thing.
Well, I guess that's for me.
Okay, I've broken down twice already. What are we going to do now?
It's always hard when you come to these moments in the end of a term. And I can say that over the years, I have worked with many elected officials, many people in the school committee, many city councilors, and Cheryl Sweeney is an absolute exception in her role as a member of the school committee. Not only did she bring years and years of experience with her as a teacher, but she also brought that passion for education and teaching, and the education of our children was always in the forefront in every single decision that was before her. I don't think I've served with anybody as long as who served as the vice chair, because we all wanted her to continue in that capacity because of her skills, her time, and her commitment that she has been able to give to our school district. And I know it was a big disappointment to me when I found out she wasn't running, but there comes a point in your life where you've given as much as you can, and it's time to move on to other things. So instead, she's now chairing the search committee for the superintendent. So she's not quite getting out the door at this juncture. But I know that on behalf of all of us here, I would like to offer the certificate of accommodation to you, Cheryl. The City of Newburyport certification of accommodation is hereby awarded to Cheryl Sweeney. It is my honor as mayor of the City of Newburyport to extend to you our best wishes and sincere appreciation for your dedication and commitment to the City of Newburyport School Committee and for your 8 years of loyal service. We wish you much health and happiness in your future endeavors. Given under my hand and seal this 18th day of December in the year 2017, Donna D. Holiday.
Over the years, I've heard you read these for other people, and I never thought I'd get one for myself, so thank you. Thank you. That's
Would anyone
wonderful.
else like to add a comment at this moment?
I would just like to say that it has been a pleasure working with Cheryl for these last 5 years, and I think we've been a good team, and I've really enjoyed every moment of it, and your professionalism has always shown through.
Thank you. And I brought you here
You did.
with my committee.
You did. You did.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last 5 years as well, and it's wonderful that we've had a superintendent that's stayed with us for 5 years, because I think when someone new comes on board any position, it takes a while to get used to things and get yourself settled and know what your real goals are. I remember the first year, I think I sat on this committee for almost a whole year. I didn't open my mouth. And you see the metamorphosis I've made in the last 8 years. But there is a learning curve for everyone and for all of us, and we all have a lot to learn. And one of the ways I've learned a lot is by listening to all of you. So I want to thank you back in return for all of the diligence that you've put in for the last 8 years. And as two people said previously, every decision I made, the students were in my heart. We may have had some budget difficulties, we may have had negotiation difficulties through the years, but it's always been the students. And I won't disappear, I promise, but I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet, but I may pop up. I'm not leaving town. So.
Well, that's good. So we know where to find you.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, Nick?
I don't know how many people out there have had the opportunity to call Cheryl on her cell phone the way most of us sitting at this table have. And usually if we have occasion to call Cheryl, it's because we have something on our mind, a concern, an issue, problem that we are trying to resolve. And her voicemail starts out with, "Hello, my friend." And you feel the tension start to go away at that moment. And I guess I would like to recognize Cheryl for everything she does behind the scenes, not only here in public, from the countless hours and hours she spent listening to each one of us, from the countless hours that she spent trying to understand our positions, trying to understand where we were coming from, in an effort to broker and lead to better decisions, which, as Cheryl herself has said, focused on the kids. We're going to miss Cheryl, absolutely. And the paybacks or hell side of me would like to nominate Cheryl to become our ex officio parliamentarian going forward.
Is that Robert's rules?
That's Robert's rules.
Boy. I respectfully decline.
We love you anyhow. We're going to miss you.
How did I know you were going to say that?
It's not that I don't care about the rules, it's just, you know?
Everyone has their forte.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. It was a little tough. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Cheryl, I wanted to also share a few words. I'm not used to having somebody that I've worked with for such a long period of time step away from the school committee. I think you're the longest person I've served with who's retired, actually. And I want to thank you for a number of things. There was so much behind-the-scenes work that you did, contract negotiations, all kinds of meetings that you were involved with. And I really appreciate that. I got a chance to see and work with you doing some of those things. I don't know that I've ever worked with somebody who was so cognizant of doing the right thing in each adventure, each decision, that was always one of the most important things, doing the right thing. And inevitably, because you are so deeply rooted in doing what's best for the kids, I always felt very comfortable that we were going to end up doing the right thing. I really appreciate that. I will miss you very much, and I understand the time comes to retire, but I will miss you very much. You have really made, in the last 5 years, I can't think of one aspect of our district that you haven't had an impact on, and a constructive impact. So I thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. And since we've served so long, I have to say that when I first came on board, you were the one that reached out to me first and welcomed me aboard. And I think you got me through my first 3 years with your experience. And, you know, you never said no to me. You always said, well, let's think about that. And I always appreciated that, because you and I disagreed about some things, but in the end, we didn't disagree with each other. It was the issue itself. And in that end, we both said, what do we want for our kids? And that's how we decided some things. So can't go wrong with that. Thanks, Bruce.
Yes.
I've been on this committee for almost 2 years, and to be honest, sometimes it's quite intimidating because I'm a kid among adults here. And Cheryl, I'd just like to thank you so much for everything you've done for me, whether it's just small talk before the meetings or talking about the Yukon girls basketball team, and I know that's your favorite team, but you make me feel like my voice matters. And I know sometimes I read the report and then I leave, but it does make a difference when you make those interactions with me and make me feel as if I'm needed here. So thank you very much.
You are needed here, and student representation and student voice is something that I've always valued. And if there are ways that we can get more students involved in what's going on in our own district, we can only be better for it. So I encourage you to get some of your colleagues. We're not that scary. And we would love to see more students and more interaction with students, because you're why we're all here. There is no other reason why we're all here. So I wish you well too in your future endeavors, and keep out of the injury field for a while, okay?
I'll try.
No more injuries. Thanks, Jake.
I'm the newbie, but I just want to say thank you, Cheryl. These last couple of months, you've been wonderful to me and very encouraging and just welcoming, and I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate your service and your years in education, not just with us here, but all your years as a teacher as well. So it's pretty great.
I was hoping you'd wear your candy cane suit tonight.
You know what? I actually had a thought to do that for you tonight, but I didn't want to take the focus away from you.
If you haven't seen him in his candy cane suit, it's quite a sight.
Inauguration.
What's that? The governor might like that, I guess. So we'll see.
I don't know. You might be. I don't know. Thanks, Sean.
All right. Oh,
Yeah, I'd just like to echo everybody's comments. I really don't want to repeat a lot of them, but
Oh, go ahead.
I think what's really helped you and helped this committee is your effective listening and collaboration. And I have to say that there's been times where I've called you, with some concerns, with some things to talk about, and you've always been good at picking out the key issues, and distilled out what we needed to focus on. And I think it's a tribute to your, as you say, your transformation on the committee. It is a difficult role to learn, but you learned it and you did it really well. And I'll miss working with you, but I know that you'll be chairing the search committee, and look forward to working with you, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Steve. And I also want to thank you for my nomination earlier this year for the Lifetime Achievement Award that I received, being nominated from this committee. That meant the world to me. My daughter was able to be there. You were there with me. And it was quite a tribute that I never would have realized or thought about. But it meant a lot to me. And the plaque I will hold dear.
Well, it was something extremely well-deserved, and I couldn't let that moment go, pass without taking that opportunity to nominate you, and I'm glad everything worked out.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just want to echo what Steve just said. He took the words right out of my mouth. Your skill for listening and collaborating has been just such a pleasure to work with you, and I thank you for all your service, and I thank you for reaching out, learning more about the role other central office administrators play, and that meant a lot to me. So I thank you, Cheryl, and good luck. Enjoy yourself.
I will. But I think also, Andrew, it takes all of us. I don't think anybody can move a school district ahead without a great team, and I think that's one of the things that I've appreciated, teaming with the teachers, teaming with administrators, and teaming with teachers on this committee, and all of us together make it work. And I'll be watching from home.
sending texts.
Why did you do that? No. Thank you.
Cheryl, I've already told you about my appreciation, but I just want to publicly thank you. Just wrap up with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Mrs. Kennedy.
Mrs. Kennedy, little mouse in the corner. Cheryl, I've been here a long time, and I just want you to know, it's not that I've never seen anyone conduct themselves, but you've been a gentle yet firm member on this committee, and it's been a pleasure to hear you and to be here every time you've been here.
Thank you. And one of the things I remember about our meetings, Mrs. Kennedy, is every once in a while you just kind of raise your hand and you say, "May I say something?" And it always had to do with the tradition or the culture of our school district. And, you know, you've been here a long time, and there are certain things I know you hold near and dear to your heart, and that comes out to us, and it makes a difference when you...
They used to call me Mrs. Newburyport High School.
See? So thank you for your service to this community, too. I don't know how you've done this all these years, but thank you so much for your great job.
I'm trying to think if Bruce and I came on at the same time.
Well, you've been here since I've been here,
Oh,
so...
I think I got here before you did. I
1 year before.
think so, yeah.
We've been here a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on now. Later start times, Later start times, we said we would put on the agenda every time we had a meeting, just to see if there were updates or whatever. So I guess I'm going to turn to, actually, it's the three of you in a row over there that are sort of ad hoc later start time members. So do you have anything you'd like to update, or?
I would prefer to say that we'll have a conversation at the retreat, and then we will have a reporting out of that conversation at our first meeting in next year.
Great. Okay. Anybody else?
Susan, there has been some talk of at least moving times for finals or exams, and was wondering if there was any movement on that in terms of being able to, if you could talk about that, because there's a lot of email has been going out about
I don't
changing
have...
that time for students in high school.
I don't have the, I did not get the official word from Salter today. They were looking into what it would take to be able to move the times. And they're looking at running the exams later in the day. But I don't have an update yet from Mr. Parent. And so he was communicating directly with Salter. So as soon as I have something, I'll get back to the committee.
Excuse me.
But they were looking to see if they
Thank
could
you.
run the exams later in the morning.
Thank you.
Is everybody aware of that
Yeah, I saw that email, yeah.
in your email?
I didn't catch what that was, though.
There was a request from a member of the community to my parent, the principal of the high school, to look at the possibility during the week of final exams in January, if the exams could start later in the morning, sort of in light of all the research that we have and we've been talking about in terms of later start times. So Mr. Parent's been in consultation with Salter Transportation to see if it is possible to shift the time of the exams with the bus schedule.
I hope we can work that out. I do.
So can I just ask a question? So they're not trying to do that for midterms in January, they're just trying to do that for finals?
And January.
Oh, and January, okay.
And January, so
Sorry, I call
both
finals
midterms
is
and
the end of
finals.
the
Okay,
semester.
that's all right, just asking.
And when are finals? Or when would we have to know by?
I mean, within this week, we'll have to know by this week so that we can notify everyone.
Right, okay. Thank you. Mr. Decanter, policy. Would you like to do a first reading or a second reading first?
Well, I think what we will do is do the second reading first.
None the first reading second?
And the first reading second, exactly. The second reading is the policies, section G that was sent out to you last time. There were some corrections that Mr. Hawkeiser asked us to do in terms of inserting some commas where they were needed and editing a long list of items under the alcohol and tobacco use policy. They were just grouped in a funky order, and so we corrected that as well. Thank you. I did not receive any other comments on section G, so unless people have comments today on section G, I would like to move approval of that section. Yes, ma'am.
I just had I was curious on page 5, where you describe the structure. Elementary school level includes schools, kindergartens, grade through 5. Middle level consists of school grades, and then the secondary level, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then there's an asterisk. Well, where's that go?
In section G, or are you in section I?
I'm in section I.
Yeah, we're doing section G.
Word G.
Sorry.
I'd love to hear your comment in the section when we get to that.
So we're on, sorry. no.
Section
Went
G,
to our second reading of G instead.
we're second reading of G right now, and then we'll move over to section I.
I'm sorry, I probably did that by confusing everyone.
Because section G is old business, we're starting with
Right.
that.
Right, the only comment that I had is I still think there are places within the policy, all the policies, that it should spell out school committee instead of just committee. I
Okay.
don't think it's necessarily clear in some, for example, I think in particular, which I pointed out at our last meeting, the one about someone could, after they move through the grievance process to the superintendent, they then can come to the committee. What
yeah.
committee? School committee.
It should be.
So I just would ask you to just take a final look at that to see where there are places that it should be clearer.
That's easy enough to do. We'll take
Okay.
care of that.
Thank you. Otherwise, thank you. Great work, policy committee and Nick.
Can we move to approve, even with those forthcoming changes?
Mhm.
Okay. And then move to approve section G of the policy.
Could I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on then to section I, that is brought to you for a first reading and first chance to take a look at it with intent of taking the next period between now and our next meeting to take a deep dive into it and come up with all of the comments and everything you may have. This section covers instruction, and it's obviously the core of what we are all about. But from a policy point of view, there are also a couple of sticky wickets, as my friends in the across the pond might say. One of them is the acceptable use policy, which goes into the whole policy of how we allow people to use our technology, and whether it be hardware or our networks, and what can happen and what can't happen in there. We have a policy that was approved a year and a half ago. However, I would like to underline that even if it is in there with an approval date on it, we still take a look at it, and with a critical eye to see if there are things that we are now missing. I know that Mr. Callahan had asked me about cell phone use and whether we needed a policy on cell phone use. That is something that we are putting into our bucket of new policies we need to take a look at. But that may also, it touches also on technology. And so that might be a question that you may have. I'm just bringing that up as an example. Just because they come to you in a package and they've been reviewed by our subcommittee doesn't mean that you guys won't catch stuff and won't be able to give us some really important commentary on what we're trying to do here. So please take your the next 2 weeks, on the 26th, when you're sort of trying to think about how you made it through the holidays, take a look at it, and get back to me with any changes. We will bring it up to the committee. With this, we actually have only one section, which we've already reviewed in subcommittee, but I haven't been able to get out to you for technical reasons in terms of exporting and cutting and pasting and everything. I've been having a real problem with that. And it's a short section, so we are basically done with the policy manual. Our objective was really to make sure it was ready to hand into the superintendent search committee, so if they want to use it, they can use it, or if the new superintendent will have something fresh going in, it'll be fresh and up to date at that point in time. But having said that, for those of you who think that means no more Saturday morning breakfast in the superintendent's office, we do have a list of things that we need to go back and take a look at, and there will be more stuff it seems like every month we get new stuff from the state that we need to take a look at.
2 new policies, too, that we need to look at.
Yeah. So never stops.
So,
Yes.
so you want us to identify the policy, the page, and the question, or the
Yeah.
recommended change,
Or-
as opposed to, because it's so long to put in track changes? How do you want us to do this? either way.
What I will do, you can email them to me, it's just saying page such and such a policy. Each policy, if you take a look at, has its own designated lettering system. In the little square at the top of the page, it has section I, curriculum and instruction, file IB, or file IJ, or IBAJY, or whatever, depending on how deep we're going into the hierarchy of policies there. So just state the policy number and paragraph number and your corrections, and that'll be sufficient.
I overall thought that this section was very, very strong. I thought you did a really good job. The only one that I thought was very weak was occupational ed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really lacking.
Yep.
It just didn't have much there at all. And I think we've talked about this before, that we have to do more as a school district too, because the days of being able to let your kid go study liberal arts for, $60,000 a year is long gone. And I think we have to start doing more in terms of exposure to occupations at an earlier age. I'd like to see it in here.
Yeah.
And I thought that section was very weak compared to the detail in a lot of the other sections that you
I
had.
think you're absolutely right. We did do some picking through some of the sections that we identified certain areas that we wanted to strengthen in. When we're trying to get through as much volume of policy as we do, we're looking to get rid of the objectionable stuff rather than add the stuff that we really want to add in there. And so your comment is absolutely valuable, and we welcome it.
So you want me to take a stab at putting some more pieces in there?
Absolutely.
The other thing that just kind of bothered me was the term, the school committee desires.
Yeah.
I was like,
I-
no, we
as I was
request, we
working on it this morning, I
demand,
said,
we expect, but we desire?
Yeah,
I
I didn't like that one either.
I don't like that word. It
Yeah.
was used, scattered throughout some of the policies, and I thought it was a very poor choice of word, because we don't desire.
I saw that when I was working on it this morning, and I had exactly the same feeling. I didn't catch it last Saturday, but I did have that same feeling today. So I'm with you on that one, Mayor.
And just one other thing, what do we do about, I believe that there are pending changes to ELL happening right now. So we just continue with the policy we
Policy
currently
in place
have,
until we pass
and
a new
then
policy.
even if it's in 2 weeks that something changes, then we will modify this policy again based on what
Absolutely.
happens at the state
Absolutely.
level. Okay.
Absolutely. That's the nature of the beast. Yes, David?
Do you want us all, like, I'm looking at this one, it says file IB, and it says the school committee seeks. So the following verb after school committee, do you want to just go back and take a look at that, or do you want us to,
I'll
do you want us all to start throwing?
It seems to be a general comment, and I will.
So
take a
should we
look
just
at
have like a verb
it.
party
That's
next
probably-
week?
Seeks, desires.
Because like, I don't want to, we're not seeking, right? We're,
Bring in
I just didn't
thesaurus
know if
with
we
you.
wanted to come with the standard, the school committee works to educate, or the school committee believes in educating.
Yep.
That kind of like-
Those two are much stronger.
Supports.
Yep.
Okay.
And it seems to be this section where we have a lot of that, and it hasn't been as prevalent in other sections.
Well, it's
I
because
will go back and look.
it's not, well, sorry. I just think philosophically, it's not necessarily our work.
You're
So
right.
to find a way to impose us on that work leaves you to a lot of weird verbiage,
Mhm.
I would think.
Mhm. And especially on some of them where we're writing policy that
Yeah.
is meeting mandates from the state, where we might not particularly agree with it, but we have to try and put it in a positive slant within our own policy. So, yep.
Or now that the governor's coming to the inauguration, maybe we just have him change some of the policies.
You can ask him to bring some verbs with him.
Well, we're getting a new person to replace
Commissioner?
the commissioner who passed, so, maybe he can bring some new verbs to the table.
I'm sure he'll have plenty of his own words, or her own words.
In New York, we have more adjectives than verbs.
Yeah, Nick, I had a chance to run through all of the policies, and a couple of things jumped out at me that are really conversation-worthy. So I'm hoping that we can have conversations about them, at the next meeting, on the first meeting of the year when we come back with this. And other than that, it was really hard work, and it was well done, and this is just, I'm so pleased that we've got this for the new superintendent and incoming superintendent.
No, we've got, really, we've had, even though it's been different people, since we started this process, you were initially on the committee, and then Christine, Steve has been on us for the duration, on with us for the duration. And now Sean is contributing, so it's always been a fresh group of people that have been adding to the menu here, and it's always great to have a fresh set of eyes, and I guess because instruction is such a core piece of what we're all about, that's why I'm asking all of us to not just accept. There are other sections that I really wouldn't have been as concerned if we just accept it as written, because they weren't nearly as core as this particular set of policies might be.
Anything else? Thank you. Superintendent's report?
I wanted to provide you with just a little bit of a budget update. The leadership team met on the budget last week for the first time, and talked about and made plans for the upcoming process for when they will be getting budget information to central office. And one of the things when we met with the city council and the school committee during the joint meeting that Nancy had not done yet and has now done is that she has gone ahead and she's made a revenue projection in terms of salary increases across the bargaining units and what that will look like. So that's what I have to give you. And this is, again, very preliminary. So I want to at least give people an idea of what that will look like. Pass those out.
Will you send this electronically?
Yes, I will. I'll make a note to do that right now.
Oh, I like that. That page.
Well,
That's very nice.
I just wanted to remind people on the back of just what the team discussed in terms of priorities too. I wanted you to have both of them.
And we actually, I think, Mr. Menon and Mr. Mr. Menon wasn't there, Mr. Hochberg, we shared this with joint ed.
Who's Mr. Hochberg?
I mean, Mr. Hochheiser, we shared this with the joint ed as more of a reference than we gave it at the joint meeting. Couldn't leave without calling you that name.
That's why I had to call
I'm
you
going
out
to
on
introduce
that.
you to.
You couldn't just let me slide by.
I know
People
that.
think you're getting older or
I
something.
understand that. I'm just getting old.
Cheryl?
Is that all?
So,
Any questions about any of this?
Not about this, but I did have a question for the superintendent.
Can I ask one question about this?
Absolutely.
Susan, at some point, whether it's, it doesn't have to be super detailed, but as far as a budget goes, can you lay out what continuing the strategic plan means for the budget and interdisciplinary courses? Like, the other ones seem to make sense why they would cost money. Well, I think maybe Safe and Supportive Schools, just because there was a big presentation on that, but like what it is that's the budgetary piece of that.
okay. We actually, it's interesting, I'm glad you brought that up because I can definitely provide more detail. Angela and I have been at a couple of meetings at the high school over the last couple of weeks in which teachers have detailed proposals about either new courses, new things that they want to bring forward that are in line with the strategic plan. So yes, and they have all given us a budget, so I can't detail that
Great.
at a future date.
Thank you.
Mr. Menon?
Yeah, Susan, I was just wondering if you could give us an update on the principal search?
Sure. We are meeting tomorrow to select candidates to interview. The interviews are scheduled for, we've given ourselves 3 dates in January. I think it's don't quote me on this, but I think it's we changed them because a couple of people had conflicts. So I think it's either the 8th, 9th, and 10th, or the 9th, 10th, and 11th. I'm not sure
Yeah,
which.
we had to remove the 8th, so I think it's the 9th.
9th, okay, 9th. See, Jake's keeping me honest
See
here.
that? Good work.
Jake is a member of the committee as well, and 35 applicants. And the committee will decide tomorrow who they would like to interview for the January times.
Is, just a question that I have, when you narrow down to finalists, is there an opportunity for both staff and students to be involved in that, like interview or meet with, or?
Yes, we're planning to do focus groups at that point, so for finalists, so that both students, staff, and parents/community would have an opportunity to talk with the finalists.
Okay,
So, yes, that's part of the plan.
great.
And, obviously too, depending upon how many finalists there are, site visits, all of that is all part
Great.
of the works. So the committee is charged with making recommendations to me after the interview process of who they identify as finalists. So that's their charge, the committee's charge, is to recommend the finalists.
Jake?
And just going off that with the student involvement, Ms. Cody, the librarian, who's also on the committee, along with me and the other student rep, we've created a survey for students, and it's voluntarily. You can go online to the Newburyport High School website, the library, and we want students to really participate in it. And it's a way for them to see what values they want the new principal to have. And
They could do it for the superintendents, or?
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be very helpful.
Yeah, and it's really important. We think that more students get involved, and we're trying to go around trying to get kids in classes and the cafeteria and give them iPads, and we want them to have a say, so that way they don't feel like they're not included in the choice. But at the same time, it comes to a point where you have to look at the facts, and you got to make a decision, because trying to get all 800-something students involved on one principal is not going to happen.
Right, no, I appreciate that there are pathways in for student feedback, and that feedback will be taken seriously. We're very grateful for that.
We have, there are 2 students on the committee, and they were both very involved in our first meeting, and participated actively, so.
Great.
And it was their idea to go ahead and do the survey at the school, so.
It did come up while we're on the topic. It did come up at the forum about the superintendent search, because there is the survey about values people want for a superintendent. And it did come up, Jake, wondering how to get as many students as possible, perhaps, to answer that
I'm going
survey.
to update you on that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We had a survey online through SurveyMonkey, thank you. And we were going to close it when the focus groups were over, which was last Wednesday. We were going to close the survey on Thursday. And we got feedback from a couple of parents that said they had just seen it, so could we please keep it up? Then I contacted Superintendent Vaccaro and Mr. Parent to ask if, and Trish Blackstock was involved as well, to ask if there would be some kind of a venue for the students to also contribute to that survey. So it was put up on SurveyMonkey and Naviance, I think. I hope.
Yeah.
And we kept the survey up until midnight last night in hopes that we would get more input from people who weren't able to go to the focus meetings, or again I said, I wanted the word of the students to be important. Jake?
Yeah, and in regards to the superintendent search and that the survey you're having, the students had, for the most part from my side, no idea about that survey, and to be completely honest, yeah, and I mean, I don't doubt you guys put it out there, made it available, but a lot of times you're not going to have students constantly refreshing the Newburyport High School website to check and see, is there a survey up today? So I think Mr. Abrams, Tom Abrams, who teaches I was talking to him about how we can get more students involved in the principal search, and he said, well, if you get voluntary students, you're not going to have as many participants, because it might be like a certain group of kids, and that's really not what you're looking for. You're not looking for the 25 kids in my AP Lit class to enter in the survey. He says the best thing to do is make it mandatory, not mandatory, but really push it on them by sending a mass email to teachers, say, hey, take 5 minutes, put this in your class. Kids love getting out of class for 5 minutes. Give them a laptop, they'll do it, no problem, then it's done. And you have plenty of student bodies to go off of.
And I guess that's pretty much what we talked about the other night at the meeting. Like, that we should be pushing out, like not pushing onto you guys, but really opening up the opportunity to say, hey, sit down right now, it's a 5 minute thing. either in a computer class or in the library or something where everyone's just at a computer already, wherever you guys are, just on your phones.
Yeah.
Everybody take a phone out, take the survey. Doesn't sound like that was done, though.
It's down now. But I thought there was a mass email that went out from Trish Blackstock. The problem was when people tried to go back on the survey site, NASDAQ had closed it. So then I contacted NASDAQ and asked them to open it up again. And so when it was opened up on Friday, I don't know, and I don't know when the ability for you to complete the survey went out from the schools, because it was a crunch on Thursday and Friday, which is unfortunate, but I really would like to get together, have the search committee get together with a group of students in early January, so perhaps I could contact you and get some help with that.
Oh, yeah, I have plenty of students who've come up to me when they found out I was on the committee, and they go, you know, we want to be involved, and I said, well, here's ways, and if you want to open up a little bit bigger focus group to get some input on them, then have the students of them then report back to the search committee, that I think that would involve so many more people and so many more voices to be heard.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, most definitely.
And as long as we're updating that, I didn't put it on the agenda, but to update on the superintendent search committee, we did have focus opportunities this last Wednesday for the entire day in the district. NASDAQ was with us. We had a focus group in the morning, 8:30 to 9:30, to make it easier for parents who were dropping their children off at school. We then were fortunate enough, the superintendent got all the administrators together, and they had a focus group from 9:30 to 11, which I'm sure was lively. And then 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon was for all staff, secretarial teachers. And then from 6 to 8 here at the community center on Wednesday night, we ran a community focus group. So, and then during that whole time, the survey was open. So there were a couple of ways you could have involved yourselves if you wished to. The report wasn't ready for this evening because we've got an awful lot of data that we can use, really good data, information we got from the community as to the attributes we're looking for. So the report is being written now, and it'll be collated, and it will be presented to you either at your next school committee meeting or by me through email. And it will give you a pretty good composite of what we're looking for based on community response. And I wanted to thank Mr. Hawkeiser for attending that focus group Wednesday evening. So we're on the path. Our next meeting, we have 2 meetings coming up. One is January 11th, and the next one is January 16th, and it's for the search committee to go through procedures and our process, and also to begin to look at resumes, which we will do throughout the second 2 weeks of January. We're hoping we can get a final list of who we would like to interview further by February, and come back to the school committee with a candidate by the end of February, beginning of March. And we're on that course now, so I'm hoping we're going to be able to keep, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. I think we've got a large community committee. We've got 18 people on our committee, but every one of them brings us a different source of expertise or information. We had over 30 people apply to be on the search committee. Mr. Menon, do you want to add anything?
No, just that a number of the people on the search committee came to the community focus group, which was really terrific, and participated in the conversation about what we're looking for in a superintendent. So it was sort of like, there was a lot of traction there, I thought, and I thought it was great. It was
Rich
good
feedback.
Some good
Very
list.
Yeah, it's. I'm really impressed with diversity of the committee in terms of skills and backgrounds and experiences. It's just, it's a good committee.
So thank you. We'll be getting back to you. Well, from now on, Mr. Menor will be reporting back because I won't be at the table, but I'll come join you and visit. Are there any subcommittees that would like to report? I know Joy and Ed didn't meet. I know Finance hasn't met. Policy we heard from. Curriculum instruction and expectations. Did you meet?
Next Monday.
Superintendent's evaluation, we're not meeting this year. Later start time, stakeholders, ad hoc.
What day do we meet?
Finance is meeting on Wednesday.
No, I don't think we, I do not
Cancel
think
December?
that we are meeting on
Oh,
Wednesday.
okay, I thought we
Okay.
were.
Okay.
I didn't hear that either, but,
It's on the city calendar.
yeah.
You?
I think Kathy may have taken it down, but let me can I double check that?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't suggest
Mr.
that.
Decanter?
I have some, a report from the Newburyport Education Foundation.
Nice.
So, in the same way that we have very significant people retiring from our school system, see over there at that end of the table, the Newburyport Education Foundation is also has some of their board members that have been big and very strong contributors retiring, including the immediate past chair, Megan Ash, and also our treasurer, Wendy Gusbeck, is retiring, and that's probably one of the most active, consistently active board members, Blakely Green, is also retiring from the board. So there are three people that we're going to miss greatly. Jed Petty is new chair of the NEF board, and David Maroncelli is the new treasurer. So we're very excited about that. And we will be having, we've elected two other new people, one woman who has children at the Bresnahan School, and another woman who moved to Newburyport fairly recently, retired, and has time on her hands, used to be a teacher, and wants to contribute, very excited about being on our board. So we're excited about that profile as well. It's worked well for us in our school system, I think. So just changes there too, and I just wanted to bring you up to date on it.
Can you report how the auction did?
Met our goals, over $100,000. So it was our biggest fundraiser, and it did very well this year.
Did you win anything, Angela?
I did.
Last year you did.
I
Oh,
know.
I'm so sorry.
Somebody else's turn.
Is there anything else? Mr. Moon?
Sure. The Crest Collaborative met today. And just to give you just a really brief update, the major topic for the collaborative has been space and buildings, and facilities. They currently have a de facto campus in Methuen, two big buildings. Most of their programs are in one, the administration is in another. And they are looking at a number of different scenarios that would involve them owning or leasing to own both buildings, which would allow them to sort of restructure the whole thing as a full campus and expand a number of programs. As we're going to be talking about that at our January meeting.
But they're
I'll have
staying
more
in
feedback.
Methuen.
They're going to stay in Methuen, yeah.
Kmart's open. Move them up here.
Mr. Bennett, what collaborative was that?
Crest, C-R-E-S-T.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what it stands for?
Collaborative and education are both in there. I would defer to Mr.
I'm
I would defer to
asking.
Mr. Cole.
Regional
Collaborative regional
regional education
services
and, yeah,
Training.
and training.
training, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
We did it.
Team.
It takes a
All
village,
of us.
Takes a committee.
Come up with an acronym.
And-
but it was a very lively conversation today.
Great. Thank you. Anything further?
Just wanted to mention that I had passed out suggested subcommittees as we go forward and reorganize at the start of January 2018, and take a look at the subcommittees if you have any feedback or concerns about the committees that you have been assigned to, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And thank you.
This is it. Ready? Motion to adjourn.
Second?
And,
No?
we have some light refreshments in the other room.
Oh, thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.